Hi, Purpah. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you on today.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for agreeing to come on. I have wanted to talk about Suitor Armor with you for so long. Since since I started this podcast, I was like, Purpah is one of those people that I would just love to have on. Because I love your comics so much.
Thanks. hmm
So for our listeners who aren't familiar with you or your comic, just give us an intro to yourself and how you got into being a webcomic creator.
So, my name is Purpah. Hello. I kind of fell into doing comics. Suitor Armor had started off as a side project that I was doing while I was looking for work in animation, actually. I have a degree in illustration, and during the entirety of my education, I was focused on like TV animation. So it was like cartoon turnarounds, background designs, all that kind of stuff. And I moved out to Burbank, California because I had a better chance of meeting with people and stuff like that if I was there physically. And I was getting nothing back. I wasn't hearing back from anyone. And yeah, it was really discouraging. And so at the time I think it was an ad for Lore Olympus that I saw. And I had no idea what Webtoon was. And so I just kind of started looking through them. And then I saw that they had a Canvas option where you could create and post your own stories. And I was like, you know what? I really need something happy to work on while I'm not hearing back about any work. So I just started Suitor Armor as a side project and found myself really enjoying it, and even more shockingly that other people enjoyed it as well. So very happy accident, because I guarantee that I'm like happier doing comics than I would be if I had gotten that job in animation.
So how long from when you started posting Suitor Armor was it until Webtoon was like, hey, we really love your comic?
I got 6 episodes in, and then they offered me an original. Yeah, it was insane. Yeah, I was, there was actually like a get together that Webtoon had that was in LA, and it was when I was still on Canvas, and I was like, oh, I'd love to go because they had original creators there to like, and then everyone else was in Canvas. And so they got to talk, and like we got to ask questions, and I had like a notebook there, and I was like taking notes and everything, because at that point I was starting to be more like serious about doing it. And I met with the person who's now my editor at Webtoon, and I was talking with them, and I was like, oh, do you guys have any advice or anything like that? And just like, you know, kind of getting to know them and stuff. And I was told later that they had to bite their tongues because they had already been preparing to offer me the original, but like they had to pretend like they weren't. And this whole time I'm just like, so what do you guys think I should do? And like, the whole time they were like, we're going to offer you an original, but we can't say anything yet. And like, it was really, when I heard about that, I thought that was hilarious.
That is so funny. Like, how that is just hilarious.
That was awesome.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's just amazing. Well, I can't believe it's been since like 2019, 2020 since that's crazy. Did you ever think that you would get an originals offer? Were you, because like you said it was started out as a hobby, but were you ever thinking to yourself like, oh, maybe there's this possibility?
No, to become original, no, not at all. I mean, I didn't know like what they looked for in terms of like readership on Canvas. At the very most, I thought that I could like continue on Canvas and maybe start a Patreon, and it would be like this sort of treading water type project. I never thought that it would turn into like a different kind of career than I had been looking for. I remember when I got that email, the originals offer, I was like, I jumped up from my desk and I was freaking out, and I had no one was home. I tried calling my mom. She didn't answer. And so like I'm running around in circles like a chihuahua on like sugar, and I had no one to be excited with. And I was like, my mom thought something was wrong because I had called her so many times.
Wow. That is amazing. I could have, like, I would do, like, if that were me, I'd do the exact same thing. It'd be like, who can I tell, like, right now? And I'd be like, well, my husband works from home, so. Oh my gosh, I can imagine. Yeah, just like, I need to tell somebody.
Oh, I was freaking out, like, in the best way possible.
Yeah, so for our listeners who haven't read Suitor Armor, just give us a synopsis of the story.
Yeah, so Suitor Armor is a world where fairies and humans are at war with each other. And in my universe, fairies are like, they're not tiny like little pixies. They're the same size as humans, with their defining features being like pointed ears and wings and the ability to cast magic and all that. And it follows Lucia, who is a fairy in hiding, living amongst the humans, and lady in waiting to the future human queen, Kiersey. And it starts off with them heading to the castle for her to meet her Kiersey's fiance. And while there, they meet an enchanted suit of armor later named Modius, who is created by the court mage. So there's nothing in there. He has no like body other than the armor. And when he and Lucia meet, there's a connection, and they form a bond that kind of carries out through the story. And it's not solely focused on their romance. There's a lot of like political intrigue and stuff going on with the war, and Lucia discovering what it is to be a fairy because she never got to be raised as one. So it's basically a giant mashup of everything that I really like and then presented as a streamlined story.
Yeah, when I started reading it when it came out, oh my gosh, I can't believe how long ago that was. I just fell in love with it because the art style first caught my eye, and I was like, ooh, this is really unique. Like, this is really beautiful. I want to check it out. Like, there's this really pretty girl and like a giant scary looking suit of armor. Okay, like let's check this out. And I just fell in love with it. I love Lucia. I love Kiersey. Modius is such a sweet little cinnamon roll, even though he doesn't look like it.
Yeah.
And it's because there's like, and then you have Norix, right? Everyone's backstories are just so sad, though.
Yeah.
Like, on the surface, it seems like, oh, it's going to be a romance about this fairy and this suit of armor. And then you keep reading, and it's like, oh, that's not all there is to the story. There's so much more to it.
Yeah, I remember when because I had to, when they offered me the originals, they asked me for like a whole synopsis of the story from beginning to end so they could be on the same page. And at that point, like, I had still been making it up as I was going along, so I didn't have the synopsis. And I was like, oh no. And so I stayed up all night and wrote out the synopsis for Suitor Armor in a single night. And I think that's one of the reasons why, like, because it was the only story that's ever come to me like so effortlessly. Like, I knew how it was gonna beginning, middle, and end. And I think it was because I was under that pressure and I couldn't overthink my story too much when I was writing it out. And like, on the Canvas version, Norix was originally supposed to be the villain. Lucia wasn't revealed to be a fairy until like way later was the plan. So yeah, it changed in the sense that like I actually had a story. And I remember when I sent it to them, they said one of the things that they were really excited about is that they thought it was just a fantasy romance, and they didn't realize that there was like a lot more that I had planned for it. But they said that they were really excited about that, and I was like, okay, good. Like, I would have felt bad if they were expecting just fantasy romance fluff, and then I was like, there's death and war and all this.
It's a positive thing, but it surprised me how dark it's just gotten over time.
Yeah,
and it just,
I really enjoy dark fantasy. Like, I like the exploration of darker things in that genre, and I do try to like have some lighthearted moments sprinkled in there, so it's not completely all doom and gloom. But I've been told multiple times by readers that they would have to take a break from my stuff because it would get so heavy. And like, I'm sad that they felt distressed, but it's also a compliment because I'm like, okay, I'm hitting on some heavy stuff, and if it is coming off as heavy, then that's the intention. So yes, please take a break if you need, but also thank you.
I'll ask you about your like what sparked your love of fantasy.
Yeah,
So we can
that
do
sounds
that.
good.
Okay. So let me just pause. So tell me what sparked this love of fantasy for you?
Well, fantasy was the main thing that like I read and watched when I was younger, and the love of it never really went away. So it started off with things like Harry Potter or Pixie Hollow, and then I would look for Pixie Hollow girl, 110%. And then as I got older, I started looking for like other fantasy things. So I like grew up into like Lord of the Rings and every other thing I could, and then eventually that moved into like I'm a really big fan of Guillermo del Toro's films because he's like the king of dark fantasy, and then like Game of Thrones and stuff, and I'm still moving into like other flavors of fantasy because I want to consume as much of it as possible. And I think I just always connected with like the aesthetics and the concepts in there. I do have a love of like sci-fi as well. I kind of consider fantasy and sci-fi to be like brother and sister, like siblings, because there's a lot of similarities, just different aesthetics to introduce those things. But I always like just was really drawn to like the aesthetics that fantasy has, and like it's such an interesting setting to introduce certain lessons or story points and stuff. So I never outgrew it, and I'm glad I didn't.
I also love fantasy. People probably could assume that. I mean, like my first comic was fantasy, and then I entered the call to action contest with like a fantasy one shot as well. But I would really love to just talk about how you created the rules for the setting in Suitor Armor. Like, how did you come up with the magic system or the creatures and even like the politics too?
Yeah. When it comes to the magic system, a lot of people compare it to Full Metal Alchemist, which I have never seen or read. But I've heard like nothing but good thing about it, so I'm gonna take it as a compliment.
You should, because Full Metal is amazing.
Yeah, I've heard like nothing but good things. I always liked the concept of magic, that where magic has a price, so there's always like equivalent exchange between like what you're using to cast magic. I think that was planted into my mind by none other than Rumpelstiltskin from Once Upon a Time, who always said, magic has a price, dearie.
I love Once Upon a Time so much.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh, I was such a huge fan.
Rumpelstiltskin was my favorite character in Once Upon a Time.
So good. But that like kind of, and I think also like in The Witcher, they had the same thing where it's like, you have to exchange something in order for magic too, which is very different from like, and as a part of that, there being a need for exchange and stuff, that was how I added like why the fairies are so feared, is because unlike humans who have to, either make like draw energy from plants or nature or make animal or human sacrifices, fairies have the ability to draw magic from their wings and don't require ritual in order to cast. And they just have this endless well of energy. And so, where something might take a mage, like a curse would take a mage a very long time to set up, whereas a fairy can cast a curse within seconds if it knows how. So like the magic system was kind of just based off of that idea, because I was always a bigger fan of that versus like, things in Harry Potter where all you need to do is have a stick and words, basically. Which is cool when I was younger, but I like things being a little bit more complicated. And as far as the politics of it, which was definitely like more complicated, as sad as it is to say, like just a lot of real world stuff, you know, serving as inspiration. Um, I'm a big believer in like the push of like, listen, just because someone tells you something is happening or not happening doesn't mean that it's true, you know, because they're like people in politics have agendas, you know, people in power have agendas. So, I don't want to spoil anything for anyone in regards to the story, but you know, it takes place in the castle. You're dealing with royals who are spearheading this war, and you're introduced to that through the role of Lucia, who doesn't know what is going on between the fairies and humans because she was raised to be in the dark about her fairy heritage. So you're kind of learning and experiencing things alongside her. And that's sort of like an equivalent to when I was younger. You know, when you grow up, you think the world is one way. And then once you get older and you learn to look at things differently or look at different sources, you realize things are a lot more complicated and that maybe some of the things you were learning when you were younger aren't necessarily like the full truth. It was very watered down. So yeah, it's like it's so sad to say that so much of that stuff is like pulled from, you know, IRL things, but that's one of the things that I like about fantasy as well, is that you can present things in this genre without it being like one, you know, like, oh, this is an exact, like this is meant to represent this specifically, when it's more of like a wider range. You know, people ask me constantly like who the fairies are meant to represent. Like, is it meant to represent what this certain group of people go through or this group? And I'm like, if you relate to what the fairies are going through, then it's meant to represent you, whether that be if, you know, you're a particular sexuality and you've struggled through that or been treated differently because of your race or your gender. You know, it's not meant to be a one. It's meant to speak to you and your experiences. And that's what I like about fantasy a lot, is because it doesn't have, you know, this world is not real, but takes inspiration from the one we live in. It allows for just a lot of nuance that I really enjoy. Sorry, that was a very long answer.
No, you're good. No, this is great. Yeah, I love that. You know, when you're taking inspiration from the real world, it could be a fantasy setting, it could be sci-fi like story, but it can make the story itself feel very rounded and very, like, it can feel more real because it's like relatable. And I really love, I mean, it's a sad fact, but I really love that you did pull from real world happenings.
Yeah, and it does make it more digestible for people who haven't experienced those things, you know, because they're reading this story and they're like, I haven't gone through this, but I feel really bad for this character or this character. So, you know, the goal of it being like, you know, some people are not likely to go to the news and like read up on what's going on, but they are likely to read stories and things like that. So it's another way to get people to ponder over things that maybe they wouldn't, because it's in the form of a story and fictional characters in a fantasy setting. And my real goal is that, like, while I'm glad people enjoy the characters and everything, I hope that when they put the story down or, you know, turn off their phone or whatever, they think about some of the things that were happening or character motivations and whatnot. So that's like something I really love about fantasy, which of course also extends to things like horror and sci-fi and stuff. Like, just stories in general do a really good job of like making it a digestible way for maybe people to think outside of the box where they might not have before.
Yeah, and it's interesting the fact that you said that you stayed up all night to figure out the rest of the story for Suitor Armor is really actually very impressive to me, because there's so much world building that you did for it, and like everything that you had to figure out, like that blows my mind that you did that in like a night.
That is just a testament to, like, if you're writing a story, you know, don't overthink it too much or edit too much, because like you have to trust, you know, your creative instincts and whatnot. At the same time, like, if you feel like there needs to be a change that feels right and that will require you to like finagle some things, you know, go with your gut on that. Like if I had tried to force Norix to be the villain for the whole thing, like I had originally planned, but when I was like, he doesn't feel like he's the villain, then, you know, follow that instinct, because like I have no idea how the story would look if Norix is the villain. I don't think I would be as happy with it as I am if I had like tried to force myself to do that.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you didn't have him be the villain, because I mean, at least, I mean, I can say this because I read it, but at least I could never see him being the villain.
Yeah.
But we could talk about the real villain. I think this is one of the components of Suitor Armor that just has me coming back every single week is I hate Rickon. How do you say his name?
Yeah.
Rickon. I hate Rickon so much. He reminds me of, like, I just want to smack him, like, all the time. So I would love to know, how did you come up with him as the villain, and how did I just would love to know, because I'm
well, we talked about this a little bit before the podcast episode about how I'm so sorry. Let me say that again before.
Oh, you're good.
Hey, stupid phone alarm. We talked about this a little bit before the episode that you know, there's not a lot of just straight up evil villains anymore. I mean, there definitely are. You got people like Homelander and stuff like that. But you know, like I grew up with like Disney movies that had just straight up bad people as the villains. You know, you had Ursula, Jafar, Frollo. Like there was no questioning what they went through in their childhood to turn out this way, or you know, being like, oh well, maybe they have a point or whatnot. No, these were just villains that were meant to be just like straight up the antagonist of the story to set up. They were less characters and more plot devices in a way. And we, for a long time, we were kind of in a stretch of media where every villain was either getting redeemed or were being shown as like sympathetic and stuff, which is fine. I'm always a big fan of a morally gray character or a fun redemption arc and stuff. But for my story, I really just wanted a villain that you could just love to hate. Sort of in the same vein as like Joffrey from Game of Thrones. You are not like, there's no way you could justify any of his behavior or whatnot. No. Like, and people loved to hate Joffrey, and I wanted a villain that people could really just like root against and, you know, cheer on the main characters against him. You know, and in this particular setting where you're dealing with like a castle and war and everything, what is the most terrifying thing to go up against? And that is just a psychopath who has no empathy but is in a position of power. And one of the other things that I wrote that made him scary to me was there's a scene where he's discussing like with Lucia the concept of treating the world like a garden.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's, you know, because there's always like the comparison with villains of like, oh, their plans are like a game of chess, you know, where it's strategic and stuff, where Rickon treats the world as a garden where he'll plant seeds, and if some things grow, great. If things don't, he'll weed sometimes. He likes to see what will happen. So Rickon is the type of villain that doesn't have a plan. He just likes to see outcomes. He'll just do things to see what will happen or how people will react. And when he has as much power as he does, he's a psycho. Yeah. And so like, if you do something to thwart his plans, it's not likely that he's going to be upset about it. He's just going to be like, huh, interesting. And then like go a step further to see how things will proceed. And to me, that's terrifying because it adds a layer of unpredictability. So he is fun to write in that he's terrible and a very real danger, you know, for my characters to go up against. And you don't have the the option to go, well, what was his childhood like, or what are his motivations? You know, like things like that. I'm like, no, this is not someone you can justify. This is not someone you can sympathize with. Like, you know, we're all just at this point sitting on the sidelines cheering for his demise. And because he is like that, I actually have never, when I sell at cons and stuff like that, I don't have like Rickon charms or stickers.
So I would love to know, what are some of your favorite fantasy tropes that you love to use or subvert?
I'm a big fan of subverting the chosen one fantasy trope. At one point in this story, you do find out that there is something unique about Lucia in regards to her heritage. And, you know, I won't spoil that here or anything. But immediately after being told, you know, that she is this whatever unique thing, she's also told that that title doesn't hold any power anymore because of the war, and that there's actually people out there who might, you know, view her as a chosen one of sorts, but others that might despise her as a result. You know, so it's like she's technically, quote unquote, a chosen one, but it comes with problems of its own, and also doesn't really afford her much power at the moment. So I like taking like the concept of chosen one and making it like more complicated, rather than like, you know, she doesn't necessarily have like what's it called, Deus Ex Machina type power, where it's like I can just fix anything. Like there are moments where her magic does help her, but it's not within her control. And I don't think this is a fantasy trope more so as it is just a trope that can be found across any genre. But love triangles. I will indulge in a love triangle every once in a while, but I don't necessarily like them in the sense that like it's so much more complicated, like people's feelings and whatnot. So when it came to like Lucia, Norix, and Modius, it was never so much a love triangle as much as it was like unrequited love and poor timing. Because a lot of people, you know, obviously people will say like Team Modius or Team Norix and stuff, and I don't necessarily make any secret about who is the main couple in like all of the art. You know, and I don't consider that a spoiler just because like I literally it's called Suitor Armor. Because it's less about who Lucia is going to end up with, and like the feelings are something that pushes the story forward. Like Norix has to deal with the fact that, or Lucia and Norix have this conversation at one point where it's like a love confession, but Lucia points out that they don't trust each other enough to tell each other about some pretty big things about themselves. And, you know, it's not like that rejection doesn't necessarily like, oh, and that's the end of their relationship, and now Norix is a villain turned bad because of his feelings were rejected. It's more so like dealing with those feelings, realizing that even though Lucia doesn't want to be with him romantically, that doesn't negate the fact that they do have a connection and are really good friends and have a mutual love of magic and stuff. Because you know, I was never a fan of like the drawn out drama of like when the main character does eventually pick someone that like the other person, I don't know, it's just like it was like frustrating. Most like love triangles are just mostly frustrating plot devices. So I enjoyed like adding a different layer of complexity. I think a lot of people said that conversation was very like real, and that made me happy because I was like, yeah, good, yes, because this is what I want it to be. I want it to be like a conversation you feel like would happen in real life if you were dealing with this kind of situation.
I love that you just find ways to make things feel real, even though it's a comic and it's a fiction story. Because it helps you connect with characters on a more deeper level. Than, you know, and I love when authors include, I mean, Peglo does this really well too into The Stars and Back, is the dialogue that he has in his in some of the scenes between the two love interests or the two characters are actually like things that he and his partner Renya had told each other, which I thought was so cute. But also like, wow, like no wonder I just absolutely loved those scenes, is because it felt so, not like real, but you know what I mean? Like it just
organic, like
yeah, really organic, authentic. Yeah, so I really appreciate that about Suitor Armor too.
I'm glad that that comes across, because that's obviously like a big goal of mine. And obviously I'm a fan of the trope of scary creature falls in love with like, not a less scary creature, I guess, in this case. I'm always a fan of characters that either have their faces hidden or are not humanoid, or they are humanoid but are like technically like not humans. Because oh my goodness, now he's screaming. Hi, come here. What? Come here. Yeah, like I guess people like talk about it as being like monster lover, quote unquote. But I was also a really big fan of like The Mandalorian, because the second you take away a character's face or change them into something other than human, it becomes less about like conventionally attractive features or their appearance, and more so about them as a person, like what they say, their actions, their body language, how they choose to represent themselves, like either by like helmet or mask or you know whatnot. So I'm a really big fan of that, which is why like there are certain questions when people ask me, you know, like you don't answer them because you're like, oh, spoilers. But if some people ask me certain things, I will just straight up tell them like, no, that's not going to happen. I've told people repeatedly, they're like, when is Modius going to turn into a human so they can be together? And I was like, he will never be turned into a human.
Yeah.
Or a fairy. Yeah.
I couldn't see. Yeah.
Yeah. He's not going to have like a Beauty and the Beast type transformation where it's, you know, oh, now I'm human and now we can like kiss with lips or whatever. I'm like, nope, no, that will never happen. Because like that negates everything that I like about that type of trope.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of like really fun tropes in fantasy. I think it's just more so like the black and white tropes I'm not a huge fan of, like The Chosen One, where it's like you are the only one that can save the world. You know, in Lord of the Rings it was a couple pair of hobbits, you know, Aragorn was helping out and stuff, but it was like you know, I like the multifaceted stuff. But
yeah, and I love, especially with the Chosen One trope, like Lucia, I mean, yeah, but at the same time, it means nothing in her world that she's in, which is like a whole other set of problems that she has to somehow figure out and overcome down the line. And I really love that. And I love throughout the story, the readers, like we as readers, get to learn information with Lucia. Like it's not just spoon fed to us at the front or at the start and we know what's going on. Like I love discovering it with Lucia as well.
Yeah, it's really fun to present a world through a character rather than through an info dump.
Yeah. I mean, I don't mean to be disparaging to people who make this choice, but I hate when there's an exposition dump at the beginning of a story.
That's
the like explaining the world. It's like, no, just I want to start in the world. I want to know the main characters.
Yeah.
I want to know, like, I can figure, if you want to do an exposition dump, don't do it at the start. Maybe sprinkle it in throughout.
It's a really quick way to get people to check out of your story if that's the first thing they're presented with, because at the end of the day, people are there for characters, not the world. And it's usually a better idea to introduce it through your characters, and like you said, sprinkle it in, because it's just more fun to learn about it that way. And in Lucia's case, turning her from a character who it doesn't know anything about a lot of things, and so you learn about it like with her, is probably how my world is best fleshed out.
I would love to know when you spent that night figuring out the entire story, basically, of Suitor Armor. When you were thinking of the story, did you first plan like the beginning and the end and then kind of figure out the middle? Or how did you go about planning it?
It was so bizarre because as I'm working on planning other projects, like it's not coming to me as easily as Suitor Armor did. I obviously knew how it was going to start because I had already done the beginning on Canvas. And when they were going to ask me, you know, how it ended, I think, because this is like 6 years ago now, I remember there were certain things I wanted to happen. So it was actually a very like streamlined, like, here are the things I want to happen in the story. What are the consequences of those? And if I decide to do X, Y, and Z in the middle, where will that lead towards the end? And so I sort of like did a choose your own adventure almost type of way of thinking with the story, where it was like, okay, I want this, this, and this to happen. Okay, what are the consequences of that? Okay, and where does that have the story end? Do I like that ending? No? Okay, back to the beginning, take like a right instead of a left sort of a thing. I didn't have to do that too many times because I was actually really happy with where some character choices and plot points led to the end. Because the ending I have planned for Suitor Armor, I will say, is not like a conventional and they lived happily ever after. If that wasn't clear enough through like the type of stuff I write with Suitor Armor, that I, you know, trying so hard not to like tread into spoiler areas, but like I'm planning on it being very organic and believable versus like I was never, one of the things I do like doing is like taking fantasy stories and then like they do have their endings, and I'm not a fan of like super dour and the bad guys lose or the good guys lose type endings, but like I'm a big fan of like making them a little bit more realistic versus like, and they all lived happily ever after and everything was tied up with a nice little bow, you know.
So were there times, you know, you sent your pitch to Webtoon. It was basically a synopsis of the story explaining what happens, but you have to like plan it episode by episode, right? So how did you, were there ever times where you just weren't sure what you wanted to happen in between like the major events?
So how I went about it is, so my system is when I start on a new season, I use a note card method for planning out story beats, which I highly recommend to anyone planning out a story because it changed my life forever, where you write out things you want to happen on note cards, and then I line them all up, and then I start like moving them around to see like where certain story beats fit in best, instead of writing it out like in a traditional outline, because it's so much harder to edit, you know, like copy paste a line, move it, copy paste a line, move it again. So it gives you like the freedom to shift things around. And then each note card represents one episode, and typically for my seasons there are at least like 50 episodes plus, and I line up and see what I have. I count out the note cards, and if there needs to be extra, you know, to meet that number, I'm like, okay, so I have a little wiggle room to have some character moments, like episodes that I can like address some things, or if I want to just have a fluff episode where I lighten things up a little bit. So I know what points are going to happen in each season, but I don't necessarily know like every single episode until I do that initial planning before I start working on the on the episodes themselves. So if you're working on webtoons and stuff, I highly recommend that method, because it just, at least for my brain, it makes it so much easier to organize and edit things, because you can just like grab a note card and toss it out, or like add a note card or and stuff like that, versus like trying to write it out, scratching things out, and you can't move things around as organically. But yeah, for at least like each season of Suitor Armor, I know what like the major things are. And I know one of the big things I plan ahead of time is where each season will end, you know, because seasons are supposed to end on cliffhangers to get you to come back. And I really like my season endings. They're
brutal.
they're a little brutal. Yeah, I will say, like, I'm going to have to turn off notifications when I finish season 3.
So, oh no, I'm worried now. Oh no. I'm scared.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Did you have to turn off notifications with season 2 ending?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't actually jumped into the comment section in a few years now, just because like for my own sanity and stuff. But I have like a lot of family members and friends who read the series, and I don't tell them what's gonna happen. So yeah, I'll get like my friend in Discord who hopped into call and just berated me for the end of season 2.
I mean, valid.
Yeah, I was just like, sorry. But the meanwhile,
they ripped out everyone's hearts and
and
ruined their days. Oh
no! The whole time I've got like a massive smile on my face. I'm like, sorry, guy.
So many creators I know just love doing that. Like, love leaving the most diabolical cliffhangers of all time. So they're like, this is so fun. You know, readers are like, just absolutely crashing out.
Yeah.
But it's true. It does get readers to come back every season, and it helps. Like, and ending each episode on some sort of note or cliffhanger is really essential, especially with webcomics, because you want people to keep coming back every week, and so it's really important to give them a reason to, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So the other thing I wanted to ask you about, so fantasy often involves like a lot of intricate details. So how did you manage the visual design, like character designs, the environments, and with things like the magical, like the special effects with the magic, and how did you come up with it all? Because it's just it's so good.
So I quickly learned that like changing costumes because you have to change outfits to show like it's a different day, sort of a thing,
right?
And I realized how exhaustive that could be with how many like little time skips there are. Like this story covers a lot of days, and there's not necessarily, I think Norix is the only one that has like a uniform. So does Rickon, actually. So their costumes relatively stay the same. And so something I did pretty early on when it came to costumes, instead of like designing every single outfit minus ones that are like important, like Kiersey's wedding dress or the outfits from the ball, I will make up the costumes, like, or draw out the costumes for the episode, like working on that episode. And then I have specific color palettes that are reserved for each character. So my colorist can just pull colors from different outfits and reuse them and still make them look a little unique. So Lucia, it's a lot of blues. Kiersey, originally it was pinks, and now it's reds and blacks. Baynard is also blue. Pears is turquoise, so it makes it go a lot faster. So you can still design different outfits, but assigning like pre-established color palettes helps a lot in cutting down the time to design them, and also just kind of makes each character stand out if they have their own color. And sort of the same thing with the magic. Obviously, Lucia's magic is blue. Norix's is red. And so I would choose a color for their magic, and then there would be some sort of visual thing I would add as well. So Lucia, like translucent butterflies appear when she casts magic, and with Norix, it's fireworks. So just picking something that's very specific to each character, whether it be color palette or visual representation of something, really helps, like, with how much turnaround there is with a webtoon. It helps cut down the time it takes to design like an outfit or magic or whatnot for each episode, because you're going to cover so much. I definitely, as I'm working on some other future ideas and stuff, I'm taking that concept and applying it even more to help streamline things a little bit. But that was like the thing I learned on the fly, was like assign color palettes to each character. If, you know, you're not dealing with like a uniform situation, or like a defining piece of jewelry or shapes that just repeat themselves, because you want to make each character have their own unique standout thing, whether it be a color palette or an accessory or a hairstyle. Yeah, so I had a lot of fun doing that, because I love clothing. I love costumes so much. It's like my favorite thing.
It definitely shines through with each character. Like, I feel like you gave so much attention and time and care with how each character looks. It just is very memorable in my mind. Like, you know, because that's what you want with character design.
Yeah.
You want them to be memorable, and you definitely nailed it.
Thank you so much.
I love that like having the same kind of color palette with each character. Like, and I was kind of doing this. Like my main character in my comic, she loves purples and pinks.
Yeah.
And the male lead has a very muted dark color palette with blacks and grays. So it makes it easier to create their outfits, because I kind of know, like, and each character has their own style too.
Yeah.
But it definitely takes time to nail down, because you also want their design to reflect who they are as a character.
Yeah. Yeah. Doing that through like the kind of clothing that they wear changing over time, or even like, you know, a change of hairstyle and stuff like that. I love the visual representation of character development through costuming. Like,
especially with Kiersey.
Oh yeah, especially with Kiersey.
Whoa.
Kiersey probably has the biggest like design jump.
It hurts my heart, man. I won't say any spoilers to our readers, but yeah, season 3, I had to put my phone down. Or end of season 2, I had to put my phone down. Yeah, and beginning of season 3 too was also very hard.
Yeah.
Bravo.
Thank you.
So I have some more like fun questions for you.
Yeah.
So I would love to know, who are your favorite webtoon creators?
Oh, okay. So full disclosure, I am like not caught up on so many things that I read. I am the typical webtoon reader. You know, I've got 15 million stories that I have like technically like bookmarked, and I'm not caught up on so many of them. I will say the one that I have consistently made sure to stay up on, though, I love Blades of Furry. Oh my gosh.
So much too.
I love the art style. They do such a great job with like their panel pacing and stuff. Like, I own the Princess and the Grilled Cheese Sandwich was the book that they came up with. I adore that book. Like, actually, when I plan out panels, sometimes I will have just like Blades of Furry up on my phone, and I'm just like trying to capture how they like, I love, Blades of Furry. I'm a big fan of Nevermore. I really love like the gothic tone. It's so good.
It makes me like upset about how good it is.
I know, right? I'm also I like Hansa art stuff. So they're the ones who did My Deepest Secret and The Guy Upstairs.
Yeah, they're on Canvas.
Yeah, and I'm also a fan. One of my friends, Uramek, actually started a Canvas series called The King's Garden. And
okay.
I love their stuff. It's so fun to see them doing a webtoon. So I've been pretty consistent with that. Dagger to the Heart. I really like that one. Just originally, did that one? That one got greenlit to be an original, but they're not an original yet. I think.
Dagger to the Heart is published now.
Oh, it is? Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
I could not remember. Obviously, The Blind Prince. I'm a huge fan of any fantasy. Yes. I kept up with Miranda and Chase's stuff. So Muted and Lovebot. I read Ghost on the Roof because I'm a huge fan of Phantom of the Opera, and I will read anything that is Phantom of the Opera. Sorry, I'm going through a huge list, but there's just so many good ones. Good. Raven Saga. Oh my gosh, I love Raven Saga. Chihiro's work. I like have a bunch of like art books by them, and like one that they wrote about like designing characters and stuff. I love that one.
Brims. I didn't know that they had books like that.
Yeah, it was I think it's called Manga Academy. So it's just a book about like designing characters and drawing and I love their art style so much. I nabbed it so quickly because I recognized the art style and I was like, Chihiro. I also love Brimstone and Roses, which is now complete. That one is so good. I think Lady Killers is on Canvas. That one. Yeah. Oh, I love the art style for that one. I actually connected with the creator of that because we were both huge Gale from Waterdeep girlies. So we talked about like Baldur's Gate and stuff, but their stuff is absolutely gorgeous. And then I think, I'm the Grim Reaper is another big one.
Oh yeah. Yep. No, there's a lot, but those are like ones that I will consistently go back to either like reread or take inspiration from. There's just so many talented I think that's one of the things that Webtoon really did really good on was it's such a good place to find unique stories. Oh yeah.
And unique art styles too, you know, because you have such a wide range of art styles. Oh my gosh.
I want to share my favorite Canvas fantasy artist. And I know she watches every video, so hi Bianca. Plugging you again. But my favorite Canvas series, Everwake by Bianca Lauren. It's a fantasy steampunk romance and it's amazing. Like she's like Kickstarters for every volume of her book and like this beautiful.
That is okay. I'm gonna have to add that to my list because that looks so up my alley.
It's so good. She has a lot of episodes, so you have plenty to binge. But she was publishing, I think, in like 2018, and it's still going. She just finished. Well, she just started book 2 technically, and each book has like 4 volumes in it.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So I'm like, I love the idea of getting like years and years and years of her work.
Yeah, no, that is so cool.
Yeah, it's so good. The world building that she does in it too is just incredible. Like, Bianca, you're amazing. I'll compliment you all the time when you're watching. But yes, I totally recommend her. I also love Morgana and Oz.
I've heard really good things about that one.
It's so good.
There's so many.
How good it is. I know. It's like these days I feel like I only have time to read my guest comics, to be honest. So, but yeah, I definitely recommend that one. If anybody, I will just always plug her when I can. She's incredible, and she has a really awesome Patreon. She's very active on it. So yeah, go check her out. She's amazing. Would you rather secretly be a fairy or inhabit a body of armor?
Oh, I have to go with fairy. I've always wanted wings. Like, I've always wanted to be a fairy. Like, again, I mentioned Pixie Hollow really early on, but I was always like, oh, what talent would I be or whatnot? Like, fairy, 100%.
Yeah. And I mean, we already know the answer to this, but I'll ask it anyway. Do you ship Lucia and Modius or Lucia and Norix?
Canonically, obviously, like Lucia and Modius. I do think that Lucia and Norix could be a freaking power couple. Again, if the story,
a mage and a fairy, come on.
If you know, like in a different timeline where they communicated better and things weren't so messed up. Like I think that they could, because that's the thing is that they do have chemistry with each other, and that's kind of the part that makes it a little tragic. It's just like the timing, you know, ships passing in the night. But canonically, I ship Norix with therapy and a good night's sleep.
Yeah, he needs that.
Yeah.
He needs both of those things. Okay, so I did want to ask you this as well. Do you have any plans for a series after Suitor Armor ends?
I do. I actually have such a large backlog of stories I want to tell. Like, I will never have the issue of not having an idea. I have one that I'm planning on posting on Canvas. If it moves to original, that is highly like dependent on, you know, certain factors and whatnot.
Yeah.
I do have one I want to take to Canvas though. That is inspired by the fairy tale of Sleeping Beauty. And I have another project that I'm working on that would not be on Webtoon. That is sort of a retelling of Beauty and the Beast. I really like using fantasy stories as a base and then like changing it a bunch and adding my own things and kind of like building up from it so it becomes its own thing. So I've got one for Sleeping Beauty, Beauty and the Beast. There's a retelling of Peter Pan that I really want to tell at some point, like a dark fantasy horror, because Peter Pan actually scared me when I was a kid.
Really?
Yeah, I was really scared of Peter Pan. I don't know if it, like, the Disney movie scared me or something, but the concept of someone showing up at your window and taking you, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's supposedly a child that can fly. That kid's been alive for hundreds of years. Like it's really freaky. So yeah, I have those three that are for sure things that I am either working on or planning on doing in the future. There's just so many stories and I have one for Cinderella as well that was actually a project I worked on in college, and it's probably one of my favorite stories. It's just like working on the timing of when I'm going to tell that story. But yeah, so oh my gosh, I guess that's technically 4 projects that I
yeah.
I have a lot that like I don't care what I'm doing as a job if like as long as I get to tell a story somehow, like that's what I love doing.
Yeah, well, I will go wherever you go. Whatever you're putting out there, you can count me reading it.
Yay!
Supporting it.
Thank you.
So I had one last question before we end today. What has been the most rewarding aspect of being a Webtoon creator?
Getting to meet my readers is probably the coolest thing that I ever get to do. You know, working on the series from home in my office and then just sending it off to the void of Webtoon to upload is,
Yeah.
you know, it's a very isolating thing. It's really easy to forget that people read my stuff just because I don't go into the comments. I am just turning things in for, you know, a paycheck as I'm working on it and stuff. So when I do things like cons or signings or panels and I get people coming up to me that have actually read it and they've got like the most amazing, sweetest things to say to me, and it just hits me that like, oh my gosh, people read my stuff. And they read my stuff at a level of which that my mom will bring it up casually in conversation with her friends, and like 2 or 3 of them will say, I've read that, or my daughter's read that, which is just wild to me. Or that people will recognize my art style. But getting to meet people who read my work is surreal, and it just like blows me away every time, especially when they get to say that they relate to certain things in the story or that they appreciate the way I do things. You know, because there's a lot of like sensitive topics that people can relate to in my story. And it just like, not to like start crying or anything, but you know, when people tell me that they appreciate the way I handled something or that they related to a moment or they tell me thank you for something, I just want to break down in tears and like hold them, you know. Like, so it's like meeting people who read my work and enjoy it is such a amazing feeling, and it makes going back to my desk in my little dark hole of an office like I'm motivated afterwards. Like I'm just like, oh right, you know, I can do this. I'm doing this for you guys because you're so awesome, you know, because without my readers, you know, none of this would be possible. You know, if people didn't read my stuff, I wouldn't be making it, you know. I would say apart from that, also just being able to create and tell stories is amazing. Because before Suitor Armor, I had been posting my art online for years, but Suitor Armor is the first instance of me posting and sharing my writing, apart from a fan fiction account that will remain like in the void forever. But yeah, like creatively putting my stuff out there and being able to make a living off of it is like, I'm extremely blessed and lucky that I get to do this as a full-time job. And again, that is because of my readers.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, and we need to plug your books.
Oh yeah, those are a thing. Yeah.
So you have 2 printed volumes of Suitor Armor out, right?
Yes. Suitor Armor has 2 volumes at the moment. The second one just came out like a week ago, I believe. 2 weeks ago now. Time is a
Something
soup.
like that.
Yeah. And then the third one is coming out next. We don't have a date for that just yet. But the first 3 books cover the entirety of season 1 of what would be season 1 on Webtoon. And I gotta say, like, the first time I got my books, like, holding it in my hands, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've drawn so much. It takes up a book, you know?
Yeah.
Because, like, I think book 1 is, like, just the first 17 episodes. And I'm like, holy cow, that is not a lot in the grand scheme of how many episodes there are currently.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, so they're available on like Barnes and Nobles, local booksellers, Amazon, wherever you can get it. I appreciate the support, and it's really cool to have them on their shelf. And I will say, I think I'm really excited for when I'm allowed to release the cover for volume 3, because out of all of them, it is my favorite cover. So I'm really proud of it. So I'm really excited. So they need to give me the go ahead to show that.
Well, I'm excited to see it. I need to get both copies for myself too. Oh my gosh. Because I'm slowly building up my Webtoon books collection.
Yes,
so
me too.
To it.
Me too. I still have so many copies of Lore Olympus I need to buy, and I've remained pretty on top with all the other series that have been releasing. It's a pretty chunk of change, but so worth it, because I like owning physical things to enjoy and flip through. So totally worth it. Not that I'm biased against that or anything, but like totally worth it. Buy my books.
Yes. Well, everyone go check out Suitor Armor on Webtoon. And if you love books, go purchase the first 2 volumes if you want. But Barnes & Noble, Amazon, we'll include links in our show notes for you to check them out. So where can people find you online?
So I'm pretty much everywhere under the Purpah, Instagram, Twitter. I'm not calling it X.
I don't either.
No one does. Yeah, Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky. I also stream on Twitch sometimes under the Purpah, mostly just like art or random gaming streams. The only place I'm not the Purpah is on Instagram, because I named my personal account Purpah before everything blew up, and then I couldn't swap the username, so I'm Mel Pulse on there. It's so annoying, but yeah, it's just like, you can find me on Instagram under Mel Pulse.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll include all of your links in our show notes. Everyone go support Purpah. Go check out Suitor Armor if you love fantasy. It's so good, and there's so much more to it than the romance part of it. It's just, it's incredible. If I could just... It is one of those webtoons that I consistently come back to every single week. Like, I can't miss an update. It's too good.
Thank you so much.
If you found this podcast fun or informative, give us a like, give us a follow. You can find us on our socials at the Webtoon Wave. We're on TikTok and Instagram, and you can watch full episodes on YouTube and Spotify. So stay creative, stay inspired, and we'll see you next time.